Oh my gosh, it's the most amazing time of the week, the time I love. It's 11 o'clock Pacific time here on a Wednesday, and that is the roadblock removal workshop for speakers, coaches, all the out there that need some help, need some places to get up and over. I can't think of a bigger shift in what you have to go through to go from being someone who's pretty good that helps a lot of people out to creating a business that you actually can live and enjoy and thrive in, than the stuff that goes on up here about your money. And rather than give you my story about money and all these kind of things that goes on here, I thought I'd bring in one of the foremost experts in the field, and I'm happy to have. She's in the green room right now. You should see the green room back there. Charcuterie boards. There's like ham salami. We've got one that's strictly a vegetarian thing out there. There's a hot tub with a freezer full of Dove bars next to it. Come on in. You can join RayLive.com. But let's bring our special guest on. Welcome, Lisa Kalmin. Hello, Lisa.
Hello, Ray. The food is delicious.
That's amazing, isn't it? And they just
delicious. Thank you.
What's really funny though, this is on StreamYard, so you have to change the actual IP address or whatever it is every time, so it's a different one. Wow. So if you had the Join Ray Live from like 4 weeks ago, it's a different green room, but that same food is still there because it's consistent.
You got a great caterer.
Greatest caterer of all time. Well, should we just dive in and start talking money?
Yeah, I love to dive in. I'm a diver.
Yeah. What's the, now you've been doing this for a year or two now, and what do you think, if you could list like the most common things that get in the way up here, what would they be?
Yeah, around money.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So we're talking.
Oh yeah, there's so many things up there that can get in the way.
There's so many things that my background is working with people about their belief system, mindset, worldview, about everything. And about 10 years ago, I've been doing that for 37 years. Wow. And about 10 years ago, I took a deep dive into money and just used everything I knew instead of being wide in everything, deep in the money mindset or conversation or beliefs. So, I was thinking about this, and your folks are people who are entrepreneurs, small business owners. They've taken a risk. There's a different mindset for somebody who goes and works for a company or a corporation and sticks it out and does their hard work and gets their promotions and their retirement, which, oftentimes our parents did. There's a very different mindset about people who go, I'm going to start a business. Mm-hmm. So what gets in the way of somebody who's in a corporate environment versus a coach or an entrepreneur or a small business owner, very different. So the good news, let's talk about the good news. The good news is somebody who branches out and goes for it, starts their business, starts a coaching business, is a adventurer, I would call a risk taker, we might say. They're willing to invest in a possibility or a dream, whereas I think people who just love their comfort zone in a corporation don't do that. That's the great news. And in that way, they're open and they're resilient and often very creative. Now, what gets in the way, especially around money, is what they don't know they don't know. So we have these domains of knowing, like we know what we know. We actually know what we don't know. Or that, I like the word that. We know that, we know that, we don't know. What we just don't know that we don't know. And if you have ever had anyone out there, little kids, there's a moment when they're very young, maybe under 2 years old, and they discover something. Like they didn't know that they didn't know, and then they do. Whether it's standing up, whether it's taking their first step, whether it's, I'll never forget watching my son roll over for the first time. I thought the world had shifted, like, oh my God. So for an entrepreneur or a coach, it's the hidden beliefs and the hidden stops that they aren't present to, most of which have been formed, downloaded, assimilated by the time they're 8 or 10 years old.
Huh.
So that's where it gets really juicy if you take the time to start digging into that.
Wow, and it's so funny because if I could go back in my own life and it would be like a case study thing for you.
Right.
There's so many different, I have parents of the Depression, that like, bit every coin to make sure it was real and didn't, oh, wow, that's 3 cents.
Yeah.
My mom would be shocked and disgusted that the penny's going away,
Yeah, exactly.
but she grew up like that. And I went through what I call the stand-up comedy money mindset, which is a beautiful thing to live through, but a horrible thing to live through.
Right.
Because I could walk into a place with $25 in my pocket, do a set, have a couple beers, and walk out with $37 in my pocket, and that's a great night.
Yeah.
And you realize that, and people are giving you money just to talk, but you establish the value of just talking at $12.
Yeah.
And you can kind of do that when you're 20.
Yeah, exactly. I remember college and my budget of like $300 for the month, and it covered everything, like anything I did, all the food, everything but my tuition.
We had, I had 7 roommates in one apartment, that you did. And we would go into the kitchen at night and we say, okay, here's what I got. I got a can of tuna. What do you got? And that's how we would create I got ramen. Okay. All right. Now we're on to something.
Right.
But it's overcoming that and realizing what you're worth is such a hard thing to do because we devalue. And that's one of the problems with entrepreneurs. The stuff that we love, that we should be working on people with and doing these things with, it's because it's so easy for us.
Exactly.
So simple that we do it like that.
Yeah.
How could that possibly be worth anything?
Yeah, that's so funny that you said that. I was coaching somebody yesterday, and she wants to be this coach and this confidence coach, and she wasn't grounded in what she's going to offer.
Uh-huh.
And then I asked, well, tell me about your superpowers. What did you used to do? What were you good at? Well, she was the bridge between IT people who, as we know, aren't always great communicators, and the corporation, and she could find the bottlenecks and where the stops were in working with the team. I said, are you kidding me? That's your superpower. You know how many even small businesses need that, So anyway, but she couldn't see it because it's so natural to her. So natural. Yeah. So let me go back just one step about money itself. So for a lot of people, when I ask people what is money, they'll tell me what money means to them or what they think it will generate for them. Freedom, security, this or that. Some people, talk about currency, not very many people anymore. But if we think about it, money 500-600 years ago, or the exchange of value was like furs, pelts, spices, coffee, tea, maybe. And then a few hundred years ago, it was coin. And we were talking about the penny there, but it was silver, gold, copper, bronze, whatever. And then it was this stuff called cash, which I still love, by the way. Then it was these things called checks that I actually write a couple a year. And then these little plastic things, credit cards, then debit cards. And now money is simply this: tap, tap, tap. And at my Whole Foods, which if you live in the US, you know what that is. Literally, you can go in and put your palm on a device after you sign up, and it charges you. So money isn't a thing anymore. We have e-currency, obviously, but money is energy. It's energy that we exchange for value. Mm-hmm. If we break everything down to our smallest particle, just little protons and neutrons bouncing around, we're all energy. It's all energy. Everything's energy. So here's the kicker. If money is energy, it can be attracted and it can flow. Mm. It can be. So we're either, as human beings, attracting the flow, or we're getting in the way of it. We're stopping the flow because there's enough money. There's more money now than and the planet than when we started this 5 minutes, 10 minutes ago. Yeah.
Well, and it's funny because I go back to your younger days. I like my friends. They ask you, what do you remember about that guy? Well, he found more money than anybody I've ever seen. And they said, well, how do you do that? I looked for it,
Mm-hmm.
and I'd see it.
Yeah.
And I would just go place, and there it would be. And I used to have dreams about finding money.
Yeah, great.
And it was something that I would be obsessed with. And yeah, you can literally. And I grew up near Berkeley and in Marin County, which is kind of like a woo center in the world.
Yeah, exactly.
So I've been exposed to all that. I'm not really that way myself, but I really believe that you can find the things that you want to see.
Yeah.
And it just becomes more open to you for some reason. I don't know why. I don't know why it works. I just know it does.
Absolutely. Absolutely. What we put our attention on, it's for me, it's somewhat like if you buy a new car, and then you haven't seen those cars around. Now you see them everywhere. It's just a matter, it's attention and intention. Attention and intention. Yeah.
Don't think about elephants for the next minute.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. I do this meditation that says, you go to this place that says you will not be bothered by outside noise. And I'm never bothered by it until the person says it on the little thing I'm listening to. I'm like, oh, I can hear all the cars now going by.
And it's crazy. By the way, if you want to come in and ask us questions about the things that are bothering you and anything else, you can put it in comments, and I'll get to it. If it doesn't, it'll pop up to me if you put it in the comments. If you see this later and want to ask Lisa a question or ask me a question, put it in there. I'll make sure that we answer it for you. If you want to come on in now, it's Join Ray Live, right? Like it says right there, Join Ray Live. And I will take that down for a second because it's been sitting up there for a while, and just leave it. There we go, so we can see who we are. There we go. And Lisa's got her email out there, and it's crazy all the stuff we go through. And I forget where I was going with this, but I'm just going to roll with it anyway.
You go, boy.
I love the fact that it is possible to kind of think about something and get it. What bothers me is because we think about the worst side of it, we put it in our way.
Yeah.
And it takes a long time to break down that negative thought process. And I don't know why people are inherently negative, but we're kind of DNA'd that way, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And if I remember my numbers correctly from the books I've read in the past, it's like 87% of self-talk is negative.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and add to that, 85 to 90% of everything that we generate, the way we be, the way we act, the results we have, the oftentimes the attitude or mood we're in is subconscious. It's unconscious. It's not conscious to us. So yeah, you add those two things together, and if we're just unconsciously having these negative thoughts, putting them out, I think of, I'll say it this way, God or the universe or your higher spirit, however you have that, is like a big order taker. Like basically whatever you put out, God and the universe actually just wants to deliver for you.
Yeah.
So being really conscious of what's the order I'm putting in, so yeah.
It's so the other thing that kind of dovetails on this conversation, we talk about mindset and we ask ourselves all kinds of questions every single day. We're asking question after question, and your brain is such a brilliant piece of work that it answers everything that you put out there.
Yeah, for sure.
And it doesn't just answer it once or 10 times or 100 times. Every question you ask, you get 2,000 answers.
Wow.
But it doesn't really understand the context that you're answering. It just hears and sees the words.
Yeah.
So what happens is when people, stop me if you've ever done this before, why am I such an idiot? Have you ever asked yourself that question? Well, my brain is now answering that. And it's answering it 2,000 times. Hey, the boss wants to know why he's an idiot. Here you go. And it'll bring back
All the evidence.
Remember when they did this thing? Remember the first date you went on and you didn't bring your wallet? What do you think you want? Blah, 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 blah. Idiot, 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 idiot. If you can catch that question before you finish it, and I know this works because I've struggled with it for years and finally kind of have tamed it a little bit, and you catch it in the middle and you reframe it.
Yeah.
Why am I such an idiot? It goes, how can I do that better next time?
Yeah. Great.
The value of those 2,000 answers versus the value of the other $2,000, it's like sending you in completely opposite directions.
Absolutely. Yeah. And this really dovetails, and I'll circle back to something else in a little bit. One of the ways to open flow is, I'm going to call it affirmations. Now, a lot of people have like positive vibe about affirmation, and some people are like, it's a bunch of hooey. That's kind of where I was when I first started. And just to remind everybody, an affirmation is declaring something in the future as if it is so. And you always want to affirm what you want, not what you don't want. I'll give we were just talking about your physical self. Like you would never want to say, oh, my aching back finally stopped hurting. Oh, so thankful that my thing, versus I'm healthy and strong, etc. So you would affirm, I am a successful coach with, X amount of money coming in every month. One of my favorites is because I have to keep it simple for myself to remember it, just be really short. Like I'm so happy and grateful for. So happy and grateful for the X amount of my savings account. I'm so happy and grateful for the 3 high-paying clients I just got. Well, for people that have a little bit of like, they say it, but there's part of their brain that are like, but it's not true. It's not true. That little cognitive dissonance then goes right along what you're saying about a question. Put it in a question. Put it in an inspiring, lofty question. Like, why am I attracting 5 high-paying clients every single week or every single month? Why am I generating $25,000 of revenue every month? Why am I finding the perfect home on a lake that I really love? Whatever it is that we want to affirm, then as you were saying, your brain starts to answer it and has to it'll figure it out. And it keeps people who are like, I can't say that, it's not really true, keeps them in the energy. And that's the other thing, is staying in the energy of that affirmation or that question.
And there's so much kind of tweaking and refinement that you can do with this idea. And one of the things you said, I just kind of want to throw this out because it was a game changer for me. I believe you said, ask for what you want versus what you're trying to avoid.
What you don't want, right? Exactly.
Yeah. And I have said that for years to people. And when I started doing seminars, the first week I'm doing it, there's people coming in and I say, please don't sit in the back. Please don't sit in the back.
Right.
and when you say, please don't sit in the back, that word we don't hear that.
Right.
But what I'm telling them essentially is, please sit in the back.
Right, exactly.
And then 2 days in, I go, wait a second. This is something that I've told people, ask for what you want, not what you're trying to avoid. And I just reframed it. And I said, please sit in the first 3 rows. And I put a sign up that says, please sit in the first 3 rows. And what happens is they say, oh, okay.
Yeah.
They sit back. And then they look and they go, oh. And they get up and they move
up. Right.
Yeah.
That's great.
And I'm like, oh my God, this stuff really does work. And so what I've done over the years, not being a woo type person, I've taken these things. I go, okay, so let's put it to the test. And I put it to the test and I field test it. And I go, all right, I buy into this one. All right, I buy into this one.
Okay.
And I realize, because the first person they exposed me to in personal growth was Jim Rohn.
Oh, yeah. He's awesome.
Jim Rohn is awesome. He is not, I don't think he's super wooey.
No.
He's
Very
like the least woo of all these people. And the first thing I remember him saying was, they say an apple a day keeps the doctor away. I don't know if that's true, but what could it hurt? And then I go, okay. So I started eating an apple a day, and I felt better.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know if I don't know if it's true or not, but I'm going with it.
Right. What can it hurt? That's right. That's good.
Yeah.
That's good. Yeah. One other really big area for your folks to look at, especially those hidden things that are not present to them. If you take a minute, if you're listening, take a minute and just journal about what were the messages that you got growing up around money, both verbal and modeled. So, not just from your parents or your family of origin, but also your culture, your aunties, your uncles, your grandparents, wherever you grew up. Like, what were the both the spoken conversations as well as the modeled energy? So I'll give you a great example of that. So my dad, I grew up in this, I was like a teenager in the 70s. So for those of you way too young to remember this, there was, quote, an energy crisis. I think gas was like 30 cents a gallon. That was the big crisis. All right. So it was during this time, and I would go through my house, and my dad would never say anything, but he would follow me around and turn the lights out after I left the room. He would follow me around and turn I'd leave the light on, I'd go turn it on. So the message was, oh, we have to be careful. It was a scarcity kind of mindset feeling, even though he didn't talk about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I've heard people tell me that their parents never talked about money, but when the kids went to sleep, the parents would argue about money. So that was modeled that money was a source of conflict. Yeah, there could be things they said, like, rich people are, mean and greedy and da da da. I mean, there could be actual verbal messages too.
I remember having a conversation with my dad when I was a little kid, because we were in the store and he was buying beer, and I couldn't drink that. And I was telling him how much better it would be, and how better it would be to get the Coke.
Yeah.
It's expensive than the beer.
Right.
And I was giving, I was like a legal eagle at age 5, trying to get my Coke in the cart instead of beer. Side note on this: everybody I've met in my unofficial journal of going through as sales manager, salesman myself, the best salespeople I've ever worked with were always the youngest child.
Oh, wow.
The reason I think it is, I couldn't beat up anybody.
Right.
I had to talk my way into getting.
You had to negotiate, talk.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Worthwhile for those in power to come over to my side.
Yeah. No, that's good. That's good.
I have no birthright order idea at all, but that's an unofficial tally.
No, I think that's probably true. And I think older kids are going to be more conservative and more rule driven, et cetera, possibly. Yeah. So I think, if you think about your environment, not only the messages, but also what was your experience? I mean, again, if your family was doing okay and then your dad got fired or left a company, or there was a bankruptcy or something, and it affected the way you lived, that influences, and then, we have all our cultural messages that are unconscious to us. And I mean, we've all heard the term money is the root of all evil, which is a misquote, as we know. It's the love of money is the root of all evil. It's from the Bible, but it's been so used as well, if somebody got the message that money is evil, you're going to unconsciously push it away, because nobody wants to be an evil person, So, or you have to work hard, or it takes money to make money. That's a common belief. I do I have a little quiz online that people can take and check out their mindset. So anyway, yeah.
And that's LisaKalmin.com.
Yeah, I'll probably need to send you another link for the show notes or something. Okay. Yeah, but yes, there'll be a link to that there.
Okay, cool. Yeah, got to get those plugs in while we're
Yeah,
doing
I
it.
know. That's right. That's right. Yeah, there you go. Well, and you were talking about value. One of the things I notice, as you said, with coaches, that it's so easy for them, they have a hard time asking for what would be a going rate or a valuable rate for their work. And there is a very, this is all tied into not just it's easy for me, but it's also tied into how you feel about money and how it was used in your family. So, for example, if money was used as a reward, like when you're a good girl, a good boy, you get this at the store, you get this, on Christmas or whatever, or as a punishment, then your whole self identity is going to be wrapped up around that.
Yeah. There's so many of these little trappings, and one of the things in my past is, and I noticed this. So I made this thing called it the entrepreneur's conundrum.
Mm-hmm.
And there's 3 things that you have to master to be able to kind of work for yourself. One of which is your native genius.
Yeah.
And the other 2 are communication skills and people skills. They're 2 different things.
Yeah.
With the native genius, you have to understand that you are really good at what you do. You don't even have to be the best, but you've got to understand that you are super, super good at what you do. You do it better, faster, stronger than everybody else. And your belief, when you work with somebody, you have to make their lives better and easier. You have to be transformational when you do these things. And you have to believe that you are so unique that you can charge unique pricing. And that's the piece that catches most people. And if you have these people that have great communication skills and great people skills, but they don't have this belief in their native genius, those people are the best salespeople in other people's companies.
Perfect. Yeah.
And that was me. When I was in other people's companies, crushed it. Sales manager for other people, crushed it. And then when I went off on my own, I failed. And I had a mentor say, well, so you're not a very good sales manager. And I didn't hear what he was saying, because I was a great sales manager in other people's companies. What I was saying was, I'm a bad self-sales manager.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the piece that was missing for me, was to kind of understand that. So now I know that when I'm off on my own, if I ever have any kind of slump, I just hire a coach.
Perfect.
Because then I'm working for somebody, even though I'm paying them, I'm working for them.
Right.
And that takes that piece away, because the structure of a corporation made it so I had to thrive.
Yeah.
With the way I am. And when I'm by myself, it's like,
yeah. Well, the accountability as well. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. The other thing I would invite people to look at is what I call their set point. They have a money set point somewhere. And you've heard the analogy probably of a thermometer versus a thermostat. A thermometer goes up and down based on the conditions around it. So it's hot, it's up, it's down, it's cold. But a thermostat sets the conditions.
Okay.
Around you. So we actually have a money thermostat. So for some people, it's a thermostat in, income. Like no matter how hard they work, they always end up with the same amount coming in.
Okay.
Some it's a profit set point. Like different amounts of money can come in, and then they always end up with the same amount left over in their business. I always say to people, whether they're entrepreneurs or not, different amount of money comes in your bank account at the beginning of the month, always the same amount left over at the end.
Okay.
It's a set point. Some people have a savings set point. I've had this happen where I'll go, okay, I'm going to get my savings up, whatever I feel comfortable with. And then something breaks. Water heater, something big that you got to spend the money on. Boom, it's back down. Some people have a debt thermostat. They go, okay, I'm going to get my debt down. They get it down, and a few months later, it's back up at a level that they had it. So one place to look for people is, do you have a pattern in a particular area with your money? Because that's getting held in place by some hidden belief or hidden, mindset you have about yourself.
And it's crazy because the one of the things I used to work with a guy in San Francisco, and he was the security at the door,
Okay.
and he won the lottery.
Oh, exactly.
And he's not the only guy I've met who's won the lottery.
Wow.
And I used to talk about this on stage. I go, we all hear about all these lottery winners. Has anybody ever met somebody that's won the lottery? And nobody in years and years and years did that.
Yeah.
So what happened was I said, do you have any of it left? He has, I have one car. Now, the other guy I met who won the lottery kept it.
Great.
The difference is he won twice.
Oh my gosh.
And he celebrates with balloons.
Yay.
And he was rich before he won. So people that have money don't hire Garth Brooks to do their graduation high school
birthday party. Right.
And they don't have 40 people in their neighborhood driving new cars like that. So they figure out how to use the money to make more.
Yeah.
So those are the type, and that's kind of like what you're talking about with that preset
mindset. Yeah.
Preset mindset. And it's almost like a skill set to do these things as well, so it's
yeah. Well, and for a lot of coaches and entrepreneurs, I know this story well, they're addicted. Like, it's literally like a needle in their arm. Like, they'll go out there, they'll hustle, and then it'll get to the point where they've got to make some money. Mm-hmm. They got to make some money to pay the rent or pay the mortgage or get their kid to college, or whatever it is. And then bang, they go out and make it. That motivation, that intention, that drive, like whatever those qualities and skills are that had you make it when you felt desperate, will work from a not desperate place. But it's a pattern, and they get addicted to the sort of the energy of that cycle.
I always tell people that if you look at your, let's go old school again and talk about an album, right? Mm-hmm. If you look at the album of your life, and a lot of it'll be like this beautiful piece with like building of peaks and valleys, and it comes to a crescendo, and a happy ending right there. Well, that's a lot of people's album. Mine is a K-Tel One Hit Wonders record. So I will go out and create something that works very, very well and never do it again.
Yeah.
I'll never do it again. The very first seminar I gave about the art of public speaking, I created it specifically for the people in my community and one company that I wanted to work with. Mm-hmm. And I sent out a couple things about it to the executives in that company around problems in their industry. And it was about the art of public speaking, but it was specifically focused just on them.
Yeah.
Well, 4 of their executives showed up to that thing. It was free. Mm-hmm. I made $50,000 from that one thing. I never did that. I never did it again. But I know I've coached other people on how to do it, mm-hmm. and I've had them repeat it, so I know it works again.
Yeah,
but I've never done it by myself.
Yeah.
So that's my weird little thing is, and I enjoy having that. I enjoy the thrill of the one hit wonder. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. There's probably some sort of weird commitment thing in there.
Yeah. Yeah.
But right now, I'm actually actively trying to get the something where I don't have to constantly be involved with to make money.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've never done that before. I've never had that type of thing.
Well, that's so true of so many of your audience. It's like, if I'm not out doing it, it can't generate revenue. And that is a model. It's not probably the most lucrative model, or is it, and it'll make you tired and cranky. Yeah. So
Yeah. And
yeah,
it's
sure.
the pure joy of doing this and being able to bring somebody else along farther that isn't where you are.
Hmm.
That's kind of the piece of why I like to do this and seeing uh, what to do. But I love working with people. I did do a thing where I was working with a bunch of people, and that kind of exhausted me a little bit.
Yeah. Well, there's a sweet spot, I think, for people, and there's some more internal inquiry for people. Like, if you had a team that was successful, how would that feel? You could say it'd feel great, but it requires you to uplift them and inspire them and keep them, feeling valuable. And there's a different level. Some people love that, and some people hate that. So
Yeah, yeah. I have people I work with that don't like people. So they'll do things. They love to be in front of people, but they don't like to deal with people.
they don't like to deal with the everyday of that. Yeah, yeah. Well, you talked about adding value. One of the ways that I I think I've known this my whole life, but I've seen in action with the more value you create, like in the world, and I don't just mean value with your clients and getting paid. I mean like outflow, value, contribution, generosity. Um, that energy is a very attractive. It attracts flow. It attracts abundance, and most people say something like, yeah, I like to give back to the community, or I like to give back. And even the words giving back makes it conditional. It means I was given to, so now I'll get, versus like I'm giving because I'm choosing to give. And, you know, uh, that it could show up in a lot of ways. Yes. Could you volunteer? Yes. Could you go to your kid's school and do something? Yeah. It also is you go above and beyond to have your clients feel valued, to, you give them more value than even maybe you ask for. There's not a stinginess to you, whether it's time, effort, energy, connection, etc., much less money. So that is a really important attribute for people. And for introverts, people that are very introverted, it doesn't mean you have to be an extrovert all the time.
Yeah.
It means that it's the expression. It's you also using your voice when you don't. Like, one of the biggest issues with introverts is they don't speak up when they should, and they end up getting resentful. And that's no good. That's a stuck energy. So again, if everything's energy, you got to keep it flowing.
Absolutely. And we got a couple of thumbs up from Chad Betts, who is the author of the book, The Second Mouse Gets the Cheese.
Oh,
And
yes. Yes.
Mark Mahwini, who is the curator, owner, CEO of the Coaches Jungle on Facebook, which is a coaches group that has over 30,000 coaches in there. I don't think he's at 30 yet, but he's close. So yeah. Thanks for stopping in and putting the thumbs up. There's been, and I can't really see who is looking at things, but I get reports from Facebook and YouTube that when people are watching and things like that. We've actually, I usually don't have a lot of people watching things live on YouTube, but they're checking it out today.
Yay, good. Yeah, it says connect. I was like, oh, I should join the chat. And I'm like, oh, connect with YouTube. Never mind. I'm here. I'm like, I want to be with you.
Yeah, and it is often there in the comments. If not anybody does that, it pops up on my thing, and I can actually post it. So if you comment, type it in there, and I'll post it. You'll see your name live right on the show. But yeah, it's the thing that, and it's weird because I went from being kind of a negative individual to a positive individual, and it took years to figure that out. And it took even my mom didn't recognize me. She was she was like, do you really believe the things that you say? I go, yeah, today.
That's good.
And the story I always tell about it, there's a couple of aha moments, but I used to work next to this woman that was the most positive woman on the planet. And it drove me freaking crazy.
Yeah.
Because everything she did was positive. And every time they asked her this one question, she answered the same way every time. And they say, "How are you today?" "Oh, super fantastic." Right? And the one time I was standing right next to her and they asked me that question, so I mocked her.
Mm.
"How are you today?" Right? "Oh, super fantastic." And that day when I did that, I did the same thing. I started to crack up right in the middle of saying that. And right in the middle of saying, I'm thinking, "Oh crap, this really
It
works."
does work. It does work. Yeah.
And
Oh,
and,
yeah.
and when I talk about it in a seminar, I'll say, "Everybody smile. Go ahead, smile." I go, "No, a real one. Now
Yeah. Right. Right.
feel better than you did 2 seconds ago. Who did that? It was not me.
Yeah.
It was you, because you can do that." That moment was kind of when I realized that your attitude is just like your shirt.
Yeah.
You can change it whenever you want,
Yeah.
and it's in your control. It's not in their control. It's in your control.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the fundamentals I talk about again in opening flow is enthusiasm.
Hmm.
And enthusiasm comes from the Greek word theos, which is the God within. And it's a Greek root, not a Latin root. Um, and I want you to think, like I always tell people, go be your dog. Be your dog. Like, look, you can leave for 5 minutes, come back, and your dog thinks it's the greatest day ever,
Yeah.
5 minutes later. But my experience is most adults are only enthusiastic at a sporting event or a concert.
Okay.
Like they're like, like they're really let themselves go. Sometimes Disneyland, but it's a little weird. Um, so, find that natural enthusiasm. Again, it doesn't mean you have to jump up and down and scream, but just natural joy and enthusiasm, because it is a tractor. It's a tractor of flow. It's an attractor of engagement. Nobody likes to be with Debbie Downer all the time.
And it totally amazes me, because I the last 5-6 years have been totally working with entrepreneurs for me. And if I sit down and start to talk about human connection, and I talk about ways to get your point across to a group, and I light up.
Mm.
And I notice it in everybody else when they start talking about the things that they really do well. And I deal with a ton of speakers, and it just amazes me that you've got these people that are that they're not natural speakers, because nothing's natural. We create
Right.
it, right?
Right. For sure.
But they are brilliant speakers that are enthusiastic. So how do they market themselves? With email. They don't do a video. They don't do anything where they can see how you light up. I know that if I get in front of a group of live people and I talk about what I do, there's probably a new client in there for me.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Because your enthusiasm is contagious. And
Absolutely.
you're right, people don't see it very often.
Yeah.
So it is like a freaking blue light to a mosquito on a southerner's porch. It's like, zap,
Yeah.
they come right to it.
And here's what I want to say to everybody: not just when you're on stage, not just when you're on a podcast, not when you be that when you go buy a cup of coffee
In the store.
Thank you, and wow, and I hope you have a great day. And like, you're going to feel better. The people around you are going to feel better. It's just a whole way to go beyond the art. Look, we're born into a culture of scarcity. Like that was here before we were born. It's going to be here after we're dead. And so what do you do in a culture of scarcity? You've got to be the standout for abundance in that. And it's not about money. It's about a lot of stuff. I think about people that are, I think about the Dalai Lama. I've actually met the Dalai Lama. Like, this guy hasn't had a house in 60 years. He hasn't had a home in 60 years. And there's just this eminence of joy and love and surrender and peace coming from it. He's so super abundant. I doubt he sleeps on the street, probably sleeps in nice hotels. But my point is, it's like, think about that, and think about people who lived into who they wanted to become and the qualities that, that's a whole nother conversation we could have at some point. But my point is, like, be if you want people to come to your business, be like you've got all the business you could ever want. You're making such a difference with your clients, and show up that way all the time, because if you look like you're apologetic, unconfident, desperate, nobody's paying.
Oh, and here's and so I created this thing to. I'm a scatterbrained person, and I have like all these ideas, and they come and they flip and they clip and they come, and I go, I have to create something that makes it look like I'm organized, right?
Yeah.
And I created what I call the action framework to business, which is what every business has gone through since the dawn of time. There's 3 steps that businesses are always in, and there's 3 groups of people that you deal with, and that's the action framework. So you're either attracting, connecting, or transforming clients, and you're either individuals, organizations, or networks. So that's the action thing.
Yeah.
And when you go to hire somebody, what we do, connection is a lost art, and we lost 5 years of people skills with COVID and all that.
Yep.
Horrible at it. And what they put this wall up in between them and the business they're trying to work by being polite and viewed as nice. Well, your friends don't treat you politely and view you as nice, yet you put up with them quite a bit. So treat businesses as if they're your friend. They will consider you as if you're their friend. If you're polite, oh, thank you so much for having us here today so we can talk about our company to yours.
Yeah, exactly.
You want to hire somebody that's polite and nice, or do you want somebody who's confident will get the job done? And if you stop asking questions when you start talking to people, you will get a lot farther with that person if you just make statements. And these are things that I've done all the time, and I kind of reverse engineered them and everything. And you were talking earlier about being that enthusiastic person. I was with a friend of mine. I said, let's go create a community at Starbucks in line. He goes, what do you mean? I go, watch. And I've done this like 100 times at Starbucks. So I would stand in a long line at Starbucks. Somebody comes in behind me. I don't say a word until somebody stands behind me, and I'll turn and I'll look and I'll go, oh, thanks. Thanks for coming in. Thanks for being there. What do you mean? Well, have you ever stood in one of these lines and you were the last person from the moment you got there to all the way to the front?
Yeah.
Got there at the exact wrong time.
Exactly. Yeah, it's true.
You're here. That didn't happen to me today. Thank you.
Right.
And then you're standing in line and you move forward a little bit and then just point to the guy in front. See that guy up in front right there? That's the most powerful guy in line because he's next. Do you understand the power of next? Right. Let somebody go through and he'd still be next. That's power. And pretty soon everybody's talking about where they are in line and what they're doing.
Oh, that's cute.
We create this little community of people that never knew each other. And it's so easy to connect to people. People are dying to connect to people. But they also are dying to stay away from creepiness.
Yeah, for sure.
And the difference is in how you start off the conversation is really the wall that comes up. If I said to you, hey, can I ask you a question? And you don't know me.
Yeah.
Right. What happens? Hey, can I ask you a question?
Yeah. Right. Okay. Depends. Yeah.
Right. But if I rephrase that into a curiosity statement, I have the craziest question.
Yeah. That's good.
Right. And you'll listen to it. And so these walls that we put up, we don't even know we do this. And it's such a simple way to create these connections. And the equivalent, that's the equivalent of meeting somebody live. The equivalent with that is email is your subject line.
Right.
Curiosity, relevance, and specificity.
Yeah, for sure.
To get things opened up.
Yeah, absolutely. So can I just summarize a couple of things for your peeps?
Absolutely.
Great. So, Ray does such a great job of like keeping your whole mindset right about the value you create and as a coach and what you offer. And if you notice you would like to open more flow up and money, first start with what are the hidden blocks, and see money as a flow. See it as a flow, which means it does get to come in and go out. Flow is not only one way, And then also the hidden blocks, really do some journaling on like what was my experience of money growing up? What was modeled? And sometimes, for example, I'm Jewish, and there's this cultural experience I had growing up. I grew up in Houston, Texas, and most of my friends and family are Jewish cousins, friends. There was just this understanding of, for me, two things. One, I would graduate college. Now, I'm the first cousin of my family to graduate college, so I don't know why I thought that, but it just felt like that was the deal. Second was, we'll always have enough money. And my dad was not a business owner. He was in retail. He was one of those guys that worked for a store for 30 years, a retail store as a manager. Okay. So this was not big money. This was just, it's going to be okay. And there always was. There was, always plenty. I never had to go without. And if my parents worried about money, it wasn't around. They had their own stuff, but it wasn't about that. Anyway, so notice all the cultural messages you've gotten, okay, as well as, again, the modeling. And there's also sort of the cultural messages that are downloaded, from the, I would say, just were here before, like artists have to struggle, or, this or that, whatever it is, money doesn't grow on trees, things like that. Mm. So if you go through your personal experience, your family and upbringing, and then culturally, and you really start to look at what were these thoughts I had, and just do a little extra. Money is, rich people are, poor people are, just start noticing your thoughts about it. You're going to find some hidden blocks. And then the second is thermostat, look where you've got a thermostat and what's belief holding that in place. And then start opening flow by, besides, affirmations or big questions, enthusiasm, outflow, appreciation, gratitude. Gratitude's a high vibration, This is the kind of stuff that'll open it up. And so if you can do that, you may unlock some possibility for yourself there. So.
Very cool. And if you have more issues with money and need help, this is the right person to see. LisaKalmin.com. She'll send me another link for something else, and we'll get that all to you as well. If you're watching this on a replay and a question popped up that we didn't cover, put it in the chat, and I'll make sure that it gets to Lisa or for me. And thank you so much for coming on and brightening our lives a little bit for the time we've had here, Lisa. It's been a fantastic time to have you here.
Thank you, Ray. It's been really great. I love talking to you. You're always such a joy. You bring joy, and I love that. Thank you.
It's like, if you can't have fun doing it, why do it? That's
great. Yeah.
That's the key. And I'll be back next week. We got another fantastic guest. We had a rough little stretch where everybody had a weird thing come up where the guests had to cancel. One of which was actually a good, speaking about money mindset. One of my clients was going to go make a proposal that she was hemming and hawing over, and she was going to make a $15,000 proposal. And by the time that she walked out of working with her, it was around $27,000. And they instantly said yes, but she had to go do that instead of come on as my guest on this thing that was last week.
That's right. Now she can come back and share what worked.
Yeah, absolutely.
It'll even be better.
Absolutely.
This is something better. This is something better all the time. Yeah.
Because I always tell people, I said, so what are you charging for that? And they'll tell me whatever they're going to charge. You pick a number, and I'll say, oh, so $5,000. Well, if they pay $5,000, they pay $7,000, wouldn't they? And they go, I think so. Yeah. Okay. So this $7,000 thing. Well, 9 is right next to 7. And I just do that. And by the time they walk out, it's already $10,000 higher.
I love that.
And you can see when the discomfort comes in.
Yeah.
Because there's just, I'm not sure I can get this, but then you get to the high end and there's discomfort.
Yeah.
And, okay. So it needs to be just a step below that.
And where exactly that range is. That's great. That's great coaching. Yeah. Great coaching. Good.
And anyway, we got to go. Thank you guys so much for coming here. Come back again anytime, Lisa, and we will be back here next week.